first.
Great. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining our ICTR Enrichment Seminar Series today. I am Wanda Fink, the ICTR Director of Operations and your host for this session. Before we begin, please take a moment to review the information on the screen. We will reserve the last 10 to 15 minutes for questions. Please enter your questions in the chat or QA feature, and also take a moment to complete our survey. We value your thoughts about this seminar as well as future topics you would like for us to consider. You may access the survey via the QR code on the screen. Now, please let me provide just a quick bit of background on our guest speaker, Mr. Pradhaman Jain, also known to his colleagues as PJ. Mr. Jain is the founder and CEO of Vibrant Health, a digital health technology company, as well as the PI of Participant Technology Systems Center, National Institutes of Health, Precision Medicine Initiative, the All of Us Research Program. The Participant Technology Systems Center received a $120 million grant to build a national platform for health research and health management insights for more than 1 million participants across the U.S. The NIH National Center for Advancing Translational Science, NCATS, is looking to advance decentralized methods to expand the recruitment of minorities, women, and members from rural-based communities in clinical trials. Mr. Jain will talk about his experience with several research programs, small and large, that are utilizing innovative, evidence-based digital tools and resources shown to reduce barriers to clinical research and conduct patient-powered, patient-centered precision research. Please join me in welcoming our guest speaker, Mr. Pradhaman Jain, PJ. Sorry about all the little abbreviations, really tripped me up today, so I apologize for that. Mr. Jain, please, thank you.
And may I add, thank you, Wanda, and thank you, Pradhaman, and can't tell you how honored we are for you to give this presentation. And although Pradhaman's way too modest, but he is an absolute world expert on recruitment and retention and population health. And we're really, really looking forward to your presentation. Thank you, Pradhaman.
Thank you, Davis. Thank you, Wanda. I'm grateful for this opportunity of speaking to this esteemed colleagues and this group. And I've heard so much about all the great work that Dr. Davis talks about, the ICTR ICTR does. And I'm really looking forward to this conversation and the follow-on questions. So with that, let me bring up the presentation and we will go from there. I hope everybody can see the slides.
Yes, looks great.
Fantastic. So hi, everybody. This is going to be talking about academic industry collaboration to increase access and impact of clinical research and clinical trials. And as you all have seen, a lot of this grants and a lot of research moving in this direction of decentralized methods. And there is an acute need for using technologies for clinical trials and combining that with the right level of community engagement, rural participation, as well as in-clinic participation. We aim to reduce health disparities and help drive better health outcomes. With that, let me put this in presentation mode. So what we are seeing is that clinical research is rapidly evolving, and it needs more novel methods and tools. When we look at the highlights of why this change is happening in clinical research, many of us talk about the lack of diversity, insufficient participation. These are some quotes here from the new NIH director as well, where they're talking about NIH is seeking advanced decentralized methods to support remote and rural communities, and very familiar to all of us, the languages, and needing to meet people where they are, reducing barriers to participation. So we all have been hearing about these aims for some time now. And the question is, what can we do about it? How do we make it happen? Some of the other themes that are driving change and evolution in clinical research is conducting whole person research. So in addition to genomics, which has becoming more popular, there is the need to conduct research based on the whole human. How do we get comprehensive data sets for each individual? Race concordance. If we have to truly diversify research, if we have to include underserved populations and communities, then we need to understand that people feel more comfortable and safe talking to and working with other people and study coordinators that are of their own race, researchers and study staff. So how do we build capacity to have diverse study staff and researchers in addition to diverse patients and participants? Long-term engagement becomes critical. As we all know, health changes over time. It doesn't change overnight. And it's the longitudinality that gives us the richness of data sets. Collection and harmonization of data is becoming more and more important as we include diverse data sets, both in the clinic, which is the electronic health record data, but also real-world data sets, surveys, social determinants of health, and wearable data sets. And then you combine that with multi-omics data, whether it's genomics, whether it is other types of data sets, microbiome and other things. And we understand that a lot of researchers use REDCap. However, where research is going, REDCap is no longer sufficient to meet the needs of where researchers need to go. So Vibrant collaborates with research leaders and study staff to achieve these 8 aims. Drastically improve patient experience in a trial or study, increase the diversity of clinical research, which we are talking about. We can talk more about how to increase, what the methods are to use that diversity. Reducing cost and burden. We talk a lot about how we have made our research process very burdensome to patients. So how do we reduce that? And then how do we reduce the cost of research? Securing the highly valuable research data. So that comes with a lot of expensive systems implementation to secure data sets in the cloud with the right level of HIPAA protection, NIST compliance, FISMA and FedRAMP and other methods. Increasing capacity and speed. We have seen so many examples where researchers got funding, they were approached by pharma, they also got funding from NIH and others, but couldn't accrue patients fast enough. They couldn't stand up the trial or research fast enough. And as a result, their funding then takes a hit. Building trust and scaling your research portfolio and sharing the data with the research community, de-identified data sets for manuscripts and with patients and other researchers. This is a bit about Vibrant as an organization. We aim to advance science by digitally enabling the life cycle of clinical research and trials. So our focus is academic, medicine, and digital organizations and skill sets coming together to be able to solve and answer research questions. Wanda talked about the role that we play with the NIH All of Us research program and many other large and small research programs, which we will talk about shortly. Our focus on reducing health disparities and being very patient-centric and participant-centric as we do that. So the types of capabilities that become enabled are recruitment, electronic consent, patient engagement, data collection, and data sharing. Vibrant becomes relevant anytime there is a person is recruited or participates in clinical research or clinical trial. So that is regardless of the use case, whether it is any of the NIH-funded programs, health services delivery, research, pragmatic clinical trials, clinical registries, therapeutic trials, biomedical research, population health studies. All of them have one thing in common, that research teams are recruiting people, human subjects, in a clinical study. These are some examples of other programs that we have worked with. I think you probably will recognize some of them here, and they range from cancer trials, cancer studies, to senior agers. There is this here called Super Agers Family Study. So use cases are very broad. Precision medicine programs, cancer prevention and control, COVID-related studies, et cetera, et cetera. As we look at, we do a lot of such conversations with health systems and academic, and they've been relying on electronic health record data, which does represent some degree of real-world data. But health systems only have access to that data through the encounter. There is a whole host of other data types that are shown on this slide that research teams do not have access to. And that's where the relevance of Vibrant comes in. Yes, a health system can get the electronic health record data, but many times that's even challenging for researchers to be able to do, because they have to go through the IT organization to do that. When research teams work with Vibrant, we are able to directly access patient data from the electronic health record, from a lab information management system and other data sets, and make them available to research teams completely seamlessly as a patient-initiated data transfer step. So IT teams are not required to bring electronic health record of a patient directly into your research study or your trial. What we've learned in the last many years is that digital tools and methods need a lot of work, which we have done to help reduce disparities to achieve equity. There is a lot of capabilities that we had to build in the tools to accommodate for disabilities, to accommodate for rural areas, lower income, or lower literacy, lower education, or maybe, and also language. So whether it's English or Spanish or additional languages like Mandarin and others that are becoming more prevalent in the United States. Perhaps in the UMB population, there is no need for many languages, maybe English and Spanish is enough. So those are all the decisions that the research team would typically make. This is a view of the impact of Vibrant's work. So we have about 800,000 participants enrolled across multiple studies and trials. On the right side, you see population diversity reaching 80%, 7.6 million surveys, 28 million engagements, a lot of electronic health record and wearable device data as well. So this is, we look at this as essential digital infrastructure, whether you are doing clinical trials, registries, or just decentralized studies. We have seen that by being participant-centric, by being very participant-friendly, patient-friendly, it can accelerate research and improve outcomes. So faster milestones for consenting, faster accrual rate, completion of protocol becomes faster, and many other benefits accrue, and reduction of cost, 70% reduction of cost when compared to the traditional methods that researchers use. Data privacy and security is our number one goal. So we are compliant with most of the NIH regulations around data security, which is NIST-oriented or FISMA, FedRAMP. You may have heard those, SOC 2 Type 2, HIPAA compliance. We also have been provided an ATO, authority to operate. So we maintain an ATO enclave for the NIH as well. So now let's shift a little bit and talk about the process of research, the life cycle of research. And in that life cycle, there are multiple stakeholders. There is, of course, there is patient, consumer, participant, but there is also researchers. There are data scientists, there are study staff and clinical research coordinators, and then there is the regulatory compliance. All of these aspects require functionality and tools to be able to be effective. So Vibrant provides tools to address and to provide value to each one of the stakeholders that we talked about in the previous slide. So this is a patient journey here, and patient or participant journey. The first thing that happens is outreach and awareness. This is where whether you do it in the clinic or you do it through community engagement, which in the CTSAs is a required essential component, which today is done mostly by study staff or human labor does the outreach and awareness, which is expensive. Recruitment and enrollment, there is a lot of human touch, high touch, that becomes expensive. So when we were talking about reducing the cost of a research study, technology can do some of these pieces. Human touch and connection with patients or participants is important, but that can only go so far. If you are working on doing remote consenting or remote inclusion of participants to be more inclusive and diverse, human touch and a human coordinator going to all of those remote locations on a per patient basis will become untenable. It just can't be sustained. So that's where technology comes in. And then doing electronic consent. Electronic consent is a very broad area, and typically researchers have used REDCap to do electronic consent. That's no longer sufficient, because when you look at the definition from NIH and FDA, they are talking about informed e-consent. And researchers have to prove that they achieved a certain level of informedness. So we do that through animated videos that are multilingual, as well as they are closed captioned to make it easy for diverse populations to understand what they are consenting to, and also reinforcing audio with visual methods of closed captioning. Data collection, it's a very broad area. We understand researchers are used to using REDCap for doing surveys. That is a legacy method, which is really not very user-friendly. And also the reliability is not high. The data collection also has become much broader now. Surveys are no longer enough. So how do you combine surveys with electronic health record from UMB system, which I believe is Epic? How do you combine that with remote biospecimen collection, genomics data that may be returned back to participants, All of those aspects come into play in this data collection. And then communications with participants, follow-up, long-term follow-up and engagement, and then leading to retention. Our goal as researchers is to be able to retain participants because accrual and recruitment is expensive. So keeping participants motivated in research study is an art and a science. These are the tools for two other very important stakeholders: study staff, research coordinators, PIs. They want to do study tracking, study management. They want to communicate with patients. They want to engage patients. They want to use tools meant for working with underserved and minority population. That's the tool called CATI, C-A-T-I. And then you have roles like data scientists, epidemiologists, PIs, and sponsors. They have their different needs to harmonize data, de-identify data, segment the data, and share this with the research community. As researchers, we aim to share data. We aim to share research findings. However, it has been difficult. There are a lot of Excels that are used, which is not a very secure method. And also it becomes hard as the size of data set grows. So there are tools that Vibrant has built to electronically share data by just logging into the tool with the right roles and permission model. This slide is a view of the tools and services that Vibrant is able to collaborate with you all on. So the first column is different tools that we just talked about in the previous two slides: the Participant Experience Manager, Research Cloud, Data Explorer. So one for participant, Research Cloud is for study staff and clinical research coordinators, and Data Explorer is for data scientists and epidemiologists. In the middle is research services. So a lot of research teams come to us and say, look, I don't know how to do e-consent effectively. I want to do more multimedia-based approach to e-consent. So we help them with that. We help research teams with survey designs or digital marketing, engagement strategies. We've learned a lot working with so many different research programs across the country that we've learned about how to engage different populations, certain time of the day, certain methods, et cetera, and then better outcomes. So hopefully the tools and services combine to achieve better outcomes. Data transparency and sharing that we talked about, lowering the cost, automating workflows where system just does it based on rules that are set up. So there is no manual labor needed for that. We want to reach broader population, wider populations. So whether it's rural, whether it is language, whether it is age, ethnicity, gender, or medical condition, in-person and remote participation. Because without that, we're not going to be able to meet our diversity targets. And better engagement. And then some studies also are looking for genotyping, genotypic data and phenotypic data collection as well. And all of this, we have the aim to serve the science, answer our scientific questions, and also hopefully more funding as we gather good data sets and make them available. This is a visual representation of the tools. So the left side is for participants, patients. Middle one is for research administration, study management, study staff. On the right side is the data scientist, epidemiologist, PI. These are some exemplar use cases. I was talking about video. So this is the informed e-consent loop. And this is a video on the left side. On the right side is a view of what a participant dashboard looks like, and this can be significantly augmented with additional content. This is the participant-initiated data transfer I was talking about, where no IT department contact is required from UMB or Epic installation. That patient can directly connect their own data from their own electronic health record and share it with each specific research study. That's what the left side is talking about. Right side has some examples of mobile apps and what those screens look like, functionality looks like. On the left side, this is a view of the electronic health record data that is received. And both of these screens talk about representation of that data for participants who are interested in viewing that data. It also offers appointment scheduling capabilities. So if you want to bring participants into clinic, or you want to have a remote Zoom session, that can all be set up through this appointment capability of the product. And on the right is talking about hundreds of survey modules that exist already in the system. Those could be utilized readily to launch the research study faster. And these are all evidence-based surveys that have been built already. So with that, hand it back to Dr. Davis, and happy to answer questions.
Pradman, thank you so much. Wonderful presentation, absolutely beyond the state of the art, and a lot of really great information and ideas. Wanda, do we have any questions in the chat?
I do not see any questions in the chat, and I'm just checking here in the QA or the chat. So this would be a good time if anyone would like to discuss with PJ about the platform. We can go ahead and unmute you so that you can have an open dialogue.
PJ, maybe I can start. So as we move forward and we have a vision of improving health in a given state or across the nation, what do you think are the critical hurdles that we have to overcome? Because linking Epic, getting research into Epic, linking EHRs together, getting people on the same page. What's your advice?
So I think if you're talking about research here, and if you're talking about connecting research with care, kind of bridging the gap or translating from research to care and vice versa, I think it all depends on what the aims are. So it all depends on what research aims are, or how are you consenting the participants, because that data, participant data, cannot be used for research or publishing if we haven't consented the participant. In order to consent the participant, there needs to be a protocol, IRB protocol. So the question is, what is the aim of that protocol? It could just be a generic registry protocol. It could be a population health study protocol where it is broader and it doesn't talk about intervention, but it just talks about observational data sets and for research to be able to look at. So if it is in the context of improving healthcare outcomes, then that's a very different set of aims and analysis. that's perhaps more pragmatic clinical trials or health services delivery research, right? So what would be great to have, I think we have really good participation on this webinar today. What would be very interesting for me and help us is to understand what type of research are, is the UMB team and researchers on this call, what are they interested in? Then maybe have a bit more specificity around my answer as well.
Because thank you, Pradhan. I mean, one of the keys is really being able to work and leverage and align. And I think align is the critical word with large health systems. And so some health systems, have evolved with population health and research as a core. Intermountain Health, Geisinger. Others have not. I mean, they're a loose confederation of pretty independent or autonomous hospitals, concerned with pragmatic issues, basically staying open. So again, what's your pearls? How do you break into that?
Yeah. So I think in the last few years, to the best of our understanding and ability, those barriers have actually gone. Those barriers have already dissipated because the Office of National Coordinator and CMS mandated that data belongs to patient. Data does not belong to a health system. That's pretty clear in the law. So I don't see any health system trying to block, and health systems are not allowed to block legally data access. If patient says, I'm using an app, and here is the proper API that is a secure API, an authenticated API, then a health system has to, by law, allow patient to access their data anytime, anywhere, on any device of their choice. So that's the mechanism that newer technology organizations like Vibrant are using to make sure that patient right is protected. This is all about patient right. And the security of that data, the health system keeps it safe, Vibrant keeps it safe. Through all of the certifications and all the compliances that we all go through, all the regulatory approvals we go through, data is safe and protected. But the paradigm shift that has already occurred, as you were talking about, Dr. Davis, none of the health systems need to take any steps, and they also cannot block it because Epic, Cerner, and others are required by law to allow those access points for apps like Vibrant and others. So I think the Intermountain, the Geisinger, those are all individual health systems. And they just continue to do what they do, but they cannot block access. We are already connected with University of Maryland Epic system already. We are already exchanging data, pulling data based on a patient or a participant request.
Thank you, Pradhan. I absolutely, obviously the data belongs to the individual, but where that can be unidirectional back. But if you're thinking about second and third parties, certainly in research, it can become more complicated.
Does it though? Does it though? Because it is determined by the IRB protocol. So that's not our experience, because data comes and stays in a secure cloud environment. It's not shared with anybody else. It's only shared based on the protocol. And researchers actually write the protocol. What do they want to do with that data?
But if, okay, you've got a multi-center study, I mean, and all of us is a classic, and it will be a classic multi-center study. You do have a protocol, it's run by the NIH. But if you're going to come down to individual universities that then want to collaborate outside of a mechanism like that, then that data's got to go from one site to another site to a third site. And if you're going to work with industry, which we all want to and should have private and public-private partnerships, the fact that the data goes back to the individual, you still strongly believe there should be no barrier or hindrance for that data flowing out to whomever is involved in the research protocol.
So the way it happens for multi-center study, if multiple centers are collaborating on a single research program, research study, that each center, just like all of us, each center is recruiting, multi-site, each site is recruiting, data goes centrally, and then each institution has access to their own participant data. They cannot see data of the other site, but they can only see data of their own site. And all of the aggregated data is then de-identified. So to us, that just follows similar model. And tools already allow for all that. That is not a theoretical conversation anymore. All that has been codified in the tools already. Those logic, those roles, permissions, those access, those safeguards already exist in the tools we are talking about. Right. These were 6 years in the making, so there's a lot that's been developed already.
Absolutely. So there is a question from Stephanie Ashley, whom is our manager and director of My Healthy Maryland. Wanda, do you want to read the question, or should I?
I can do that. Thank you for introducing her, though. She says, Pradhaman, she says, "Hi, PJ, great presentation. As you spoke about, underrepresented populations often have barriers, including lack of trust, lack of access to internet, smart electronics, among others. Maybe you can share a bit about your thoughts on how to bridge that gap with electronic consent enrollment and how to scale given those barriers when human touch is important but not scalable or affordable."
Yeah, thank you, Stephanie. Great question. So there are two aspects here: lack of access and lack of trust. So technology does reach people, and technology can reach people. And as Stephanie mentioned, it may not be practical to have research coordinators reach out to every single patient. So what electronic consent has enabled us to do is, now, most of the time, most of the population, there are certainly a lot of outliers, no question, but they do have access to some level of technology. They can go to a library. We have seen that happen, where there is internet and browser in the library. People are participating through that. They do have mobile phones. They have their children many times are also a great conduit to invite them to participate in research. We have seen that happen. And any of these methods, just understanding what research is about and creating intrinsic motivation is the difference between success and failure for the research program. So that's what electronic consent allows you to do, is to be able to speak to those participants directly and hopefully anticipate their questions and be able to answer those through electronic consenting method. Now, in terms of reach, as I mentioned, there are several methods available, but at the end of the day, certainly human touch is important and a relationship is important, but the question is, how far can we go and how much time can you spend on a per participant basis? So that's where, whether it's a phone call or a Zoom, or maybe it's just purely remote participation, those are all very dependent on each study and the aims of the study.
Stephanie, you are unmuted if you would like to respond.
Yeah, no, thank you. Again, great presentation. Thank you, PJ. Yeah, I think you're right. I think for those who do enroll, I think there's huge advantages to being able to, in terms of retainment. I think where we're experiencing some of that struggle is in terms of recruitment before they've enrolled, and how to, we're really thinking hard about a kind of combined approach, where we have some human touch, but then also have scalability of e-enrollment and consent, and kind of how to balance the two. Because I think gaining trust in those underrepresented populations is really hard to do solely electronically.
Yes. Look, this is a real challenge. And you have hit on probably one of the most critical challenges. But there are challenges for everybody, every research study. But that doesn't mean research stops.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So at some point, you reach an equilibrium, maybe not able to meet the study recruitment goals or the targets, but research also must go on. And I think that's where the challenge becomes. The other thing one could think about is maybe a couple of research teams could maybe band together to do some cost sharing, to perhaps fund together maybe the total cost of funding a community engagement program or clinical research coordinators. Maybe there are some cost savings there with some efficiencies of doing it for multiple studies. Because at the end of the day, patient population and location of patients is, predetermined. So maybe there are some efficiencies there. Maybe there is, over time, relationships are built in the community. And the second and the third and the fourth study doesn't need as much in person as the first one or two did. So we've also seen that happen.
So Pradhaman, you had mentioned the app where participants, patients can access their medical information. So is there an opportunity for a demonstration of how they are able to pinpoint what they're looking for? Because when someone opens up a medical record, there's a plethora of notes and imaging and labs. And so how do they navigate that? Or what's the most important thing that comes up first that they see?
Right. So this method of exchanging electronic health record information is more from a research perspective. So the imaging and other kinds of imaging based, whether it is radiology or other types of X-rays or things like that, those are not. Because anything that requires a reading of the image and or analysis of the image, by just transmitting an image, patient has no real value for it. They cannot interpret it, but they can certainly understand that, hey, my cholesterol was supposed to be, ideal cholesterol level should be around 200, I'm at 350 or I'm at 100. They can understand that at least, but there is no way to really interpret. So the imaging information is not exchanged. And there are standards available for data transfer for things like medication, allergies, symptoms, demographic, basic patient information. There is extensive set of lab work. All of that data is brought in, which is good enough for research purposes. There's plenty of data sets for research, including all the medications.
So I'm looking at the chat as well as our QA. I don't see any additional questions. If anyone has something they would like to bring up or discuss, please let us know. Otherwise, we may be ending this session here in the next minute or two. Dr. Davis.
Thank you, Pradman. As always, wonderful advice, wonderful data, and wonderful project. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you, everybody. And it's been a great pleasure to speak to you today. And everybody have a good day.
Thank you, Pradman. Thanks, everyone, for attending.
Thank you,
And don't
Wanda.
forget the survey.
Bye.
Bye now.